Dan, let's just get right into it. Who you got winning it?
You know, when they made this fight, or when it first came up about 2 years ago, I thought that Gennady Golovkin would steamroll Canelo Alvarez. But since that happened, I've seen Canelo Alvarez get better, in my opinion. And not just because he was fighting maybe lesser guys, but I've saw sort of the kind of combinations he throws and the way he throws his punches. And then Gennady Golovkin, in that same period of time, had 2 fights that he won, a knockout against Kell Brook and a decision, a very close decision, against Danny Jacobs in March. But he got touched up in the Kell Brook fight. You know, the other fight against Danny Jacobs was really, really close, the hardest fight he's ever had in his career. So the gap closed, in my opinion. Gennady slightly not as good as he may have been, maybe lost a little bit. Canelo getting better, the gap closes. So I still think Golovkin wins the fight, but it's a much closer fight than it would have expected originally.
You know, for me personally, I want to defer to both you and Max asking these questions. When I look at Triple G, particularly the last 2 fights, did you see slippage, or did you see somebody that intentionally appeared to be a bit lackadaisical, not as razor sharp, not as focused, because he was fearful that he wouldn't be able to get the big money fight because guys were running from him?
In both fights, you mean, or just the Kell Brook fight?
Both. I'm asking.
Not both fights. I mean, nobody goes there and tries to do that on purpose to get nailed like that. Now, the Kell Brook fight, he had no fear of Kell Brook's punches. I was in England for that fight in London, and, you know, Gennady was just like, I'm going to just walk through this guy. That was my viewpoint of the way that he was conducting himself. I think he really felt like, even though when you sized them up next to each other, if you didn't know which guy was the middleweight and which guy was the welterweight moving up, Kell Brook was actually physically larger than Gennady Golovkin, but he had no fear of him whatsoever. So, you know, I'm not saying he took the fight lightly, but he knew he was going to bust him up, and what did he do? He broke his face. It's not like he got cut or dropped or really hurt.
Broke his face.
He broke his face. He broke his orbital bone, and you know, Kell Brook's never been the same since then. He went back down to welterweight and had the orbital bone broke on the other side of his face broken in his next fight.
Tough couple fights, yes. Triple G and Errol Spence.
But Danny Jacobs is one of the best punchers in boxing. This is a guy that's almost every one of his victories by knockout. He's not messing around with a guy like that. He just came up against the best fighter he had faced and had a little bit of a tough time.
And Danny Jacobs is very tall. He's long. He intentionally weighed in over the limit in terms of the re-weighing the next day and didn't fight for one of the belts in order to have a size advantage. He's hungry his whole career for a fight like this. I've been watching Danny since he was an amateur. That's a different fight than Canelo, who's a smaller guy. What do you think about this, Dan? You know, often we're just coming out of the Mayweather-Pacquiao era, where there was all this pent-up demand, and the fight never happened when the people really wanted it. And by the time we saw it, it wasn't really the fight anymore. I still think Floyd would have won had they been younger, but those are not the 2 guys we all wanted to see fight. They were versions of themselves. This is a little different to me. Oscar De La Hoya, to me, deserves enormous credit as a promoter.
Yes, he does.
Not only did he make the fight, not only did he make it before the expiration date had passed, but he was smart. Canelo was not really truly a middleweight yet. Golovkin was in his physical prime and destroying everyone. And Oscar saw, as a former great fighter, let me wait until a little edge comes off Triple G. Let me wait until my guy becomes a full-fledged middleweight. And you're absolutely right. The fight now on paper seems much more competitive and therefore more interesting than it would have been a year and a half ago.
Oscar De La Hoya learned from the people that did his career. He learned from people like, and I'll shout him out, the Hall of Fame matchmaker Bruce Trampler, and the people at Top Rank, who with Oscar's career, even though Oscar fought everybody when he was, especially when he got to welterweight and beyond, fought everybody. But again, they got the guys, not when they were expired fights, but when they were at the right time where Oscar was going to be the favorite to win. Pernell Whitaker, for example, that fight. Whitaker, all-time great fighter, welterweight champion at the time, but maybe just a little bit.
A lot past his prime, actually.
But maybe not past his prime, maybe past his prime, but not a shot fighter or anything like that. And they put Oscar in with him, and he was able to, you know, barely get the win. Same with an Ike Quartey when he fought him, you know, had been off for a long time.
That was a good fight.
That was a terrific fight, but they made it at the right time. And
which is nothing new, by the way. Sugar Ray Leonard didn't fight Marvin Hagler. Everyone said, oh, back in the Leonard Hearns-Duran era. Sugar Ray waited until he saw Hagler slip a little, and then he's like, and then Roberto Duran had to tell Sugar Ray, you fight him. I mean, like after he had a close fight with Hagler. He was smart about it, too.